Hello everyone. Welcome to Digital Marketing Gyaan, the podcast where we keep on sharing some of the informative tools, techniques, case studies, and latest updates in digital marketing domain. I'm your host Prince Kumar, and today we have an amazing guest with us who will be sharing the case study of how Branzio watches increased its online sales from 6 figures to 8 figures. We have Ronnie Teja, the founder and a digital marketer at Branzio Watches. Ronnie was born in Mumbai, India, and then migrated to Canada in the year 2008 when he was around 22 years old. Currently, he owns and operates a thriving e commerce company that sells watches and related accessories across 15 websites, including Branzio.com. His team consists of around 35 employees that are spread out in a dozen of countries. Before starting his entrepreneurial journey, he has been associated as a digital marketer with prominent brands such as Indian Winter Olympics Association, HSBC Canada, and Best Buy. Ronnie, welcome to our show.
Hey, buddy, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Glad to know that we both share connection of from being India and then also started our career as a digital marketer.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Yeah.
So, how have your life been in India and then moving to Canada and now also in the Bangkok?
Yeah, I mean, the life has been fantastic. I mean, in the sense that, of course, there's ups and downs, and of course, there's struggles of having moving to a new country and getting acclimatized to a whole new place. But I would say, a move to Canada was for the better. I mean, I could say that after about 8 or 9 years after moving there, when I started my own company. However, it takes a while to get used to the culture and how I guess the cultural differences in the management styles you have in Canada versus India, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say it's been pretty. I've been very lucky in that fact that it's a golden ticket that I actually won, and my parents and everybody else, we all moved there. More so than anything else, what I would say is, I created a life of living a very nomadic lifestyle. So usually the way my life is, I'm a perpetual sun chaser. So I spend 2 or 3 months in Vancouver, I do spend 2 or 3 months in Berlin in Germany, and I spend 6 months of the year here in Bangkok.
Amazing, amazing. So, Ronnie, tell me how does the idea of Branzio was started?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd been working for a few companies from back in the day. So I'd worked for HSBC, I'd worked for Best Buy, and of course, I had access to analytics and everything else. And I always looked at it and I said, look, hey, that all my life I've been making other people money. And I said, why don't I owe it to myself? Why don't I owe myself a chance to actually take a bet on myself to say, look, I've got this digital marketing background. I understand how e-commerce operates. Why don't I actually take a chance on myself? So through some research, et cetera, I found that watches was a very profitable niche, especially back then. And it was all about time to market. So that's how I came upon watches and men's fashion accessories, and that's how we started.
Oh, that's great. So, how has the journey been till now in terms of whether you can say in terms of growth and other major achievements?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, the first thing is, I started with about $20,000 in my bank account. So, I mean, in terms of $20,000 included the cost of digital marketing, $20,000 included the cost of employees, included the cost of sourcing the product, ads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I was lucky in the sense that we got an opportunity to Facebook and Instagram and all these other ads before, the market was nascent for it. So we actually were testing things out before Instagram became big, and that's actually worked out for us. Influencers have worked out for us in a bunch of different things. I think one of my private personal achievements was actually growing the brand from 6 figures to 8 figures. That was a big achievement in my life. But, from there on, of course, building a team of 35 employees working in about 5 different continents, I would consider that a win in my books. Even more than that, I would say that the way we have a distributed team, we don't actually have an overhead, we don't have offices. The whole team is working remotely, and we're pretty much in synergy as to how we actually do things. So that's something that management and my self development was, of course, uh, was revolved quite a lot around how management styles are, because initially when I started it was quite different. I was thinking about a very lead from the front sort of a management style, and over the time it's been developed into a sort of leadership style where I'm able to push my team gently from the back and nudge them in the right direction, which has actually worked out for us in the long run.
So when we talk about the e-commerce, so in e-commerce, what we have seen that in sales, then selling the first few products is always the most difficult part because no one knows you and there are a lot of doubtful about your credit quality. So how did you manage to sell your watches at the initial level?
For us, for me personally, from day one, it's always been about having that sort of Zappo mentality or the Amazon mentality, which is the customer always comes first. If the customer wants a refund, we never fight our customers. We proactively give customers refunds. If they want a replacement even after 2 years, we have no issues actually mailing them, a free watch or something. It's something that we've stuck by. So the pillars of a company are pretty solid. Wherein it is each and every person's job in the company to actually look at it from a customer's perspective, and the customer is always going to come first. What that essentially means is we don't bargain with customers for refunds. We don't fight with them for refunds. If the customer comes to us and says, "Look, I want a refund," it's like, yeah, no problem. If you don't like the product, that's fine. Because not now, but maybe 1 or 2 years from now, the customer is going to come back, right? And what that essentially means is you want to be able to give that customer that trust. So when you're talking about trust and you're starting a new website, what is going to set you apart from your competition is how you actually interact with the customer. Of course, reviews are a big thing, etc., etc. But having a sleekly designed site, having a customer service that works 24/7, 365 days of the year, having infrastructure and support, which is via phone or email or live chat or text or WhatsApp. We give our customers all that. So we have various touch points where people want to touch us, and we are always happy to provide them with different ways of how we are able to service our customers no matter what. Ours is a physical product, so when it comes to digital delivery, etc., etc., we're able to even do that. Every step of the journey, we are able to handhold them. We are able to take them through the whole process, and we are also able to take them through the journey of when their product is going to be delivered to them. And I thought that was the most important part for me, which is when are they going to get their product in hand. So all through that process, it was extremely important for us to make sure that the customer sees all of that. And of course, some of people tried, people bought, people left reviews because the service was fantastic. And yeah, so that's where we came in.
Definitely, definitely. The customer is the key point which you have mentioned. So I think so that's the important part when one goes for building a e-commerce company. So if you are having customer as a center point, then definitely it will be beneficial in terms of a long run. Ronnie,
Yes.
I have also heard that you own around 18 different sites. Can you tell us more about them and how they are complementing your core business?
Yeah, for sure. For the core business, I mean, what we've done is, as an expansion strategy to different countries around, we've taken over some brands in some cases that were, what we thought were leading in the market and that fit into our vertical for customers. Number one. Number two, what we were also able to do was we were able to target these websites. Some of them were affiliate sites, and we said, okay, and content sites where we were able to actually wrap them up under the banner. So we were able to see how these sites fit into the whole, the grand scheme of things. So we were able to have complementary sites that supported the whole Branzio umbrella. So what could be like, something which is let's say, best watches in South Africa, for example, right? And we were able to actually take over those sort of websites, which actually complemented our products, and we wanted to expand in South Africa, and it actually just fit into the whole ballgame as to where we wanted it to be. So yeah, that's something that I thought was quite important. In the long run, it was extremely important for us to also come to agreement with the fact that how we want to like grow these sites. So in some cases, we were able to redirect them to the main site, which increased the SEO value, image optimization. So I mean, we get almost 1 million organic visitors a month, which has helped us out in the long run. Secondly, we were able to also use the banner of these umbrellas to give ourselves more legitimacy, which I think was pretty important.
So all these sites are content based, or they are kind of what we can say a kind of micro e-commerce.
Some of them are e-commerce, so we've taken over competing brands and rebranded them as Branzio. Email lists help out a lot. Affiliate sites help us a lot. So they're all a mix. They're all a mix. The ragtag mix of affiliate sites, review sites, e-commerce sites, competing brands, etc.
So what are the branding initiatives you have taken to create Branzio, a global brand?
Yes, so there's a few things that I talked about. So one of the strategies that we had was, of course, the expansion strategy, which I talked to you about in detail, which was, of course, like taking over competing sites. In some cases, we try and compete by ourselves, which of course was very important for us. That I think has worked out for us. And if usually if you can't compete and there's somebody else that we thought would be long term, you know, then we've actually ended up acquiring our competitors in those places. So that's one thing. Of course, when we're an e-commerce business again, so anything that comes to scaling. So if you think certain ad sets are working for us, if certain things are working for us, in the long run, what we do is we just put pedal to the metal. So we don't wait for anything to happen. We'll just load up our ads and like strictly go after that market as much as we can, and we'll try and spend 10, 20, $30,000 a day to be able to generate as much revenue because we know what is sticking and we're able to do as much as we can there. So that's some of the stuff that's worked out. Of course, not to take out the fact that hiring has worked out extremely well for us. I have a management team in place of about four managers who are extremely knowledgeable about what they do, having a proper HR department, having systems in place and processes in place that in the long term, which is basically going to help us out overall. So, I think the core group is, having people in the organization who are committed to the long-term vision of the whole organization, right? Number one. Number two, having that sort of Amazon's mentality, because whenever people join the organization, they come from different mindsets, but they need to be able to come to the organization and figure out that this is what we are here for, which is customers always number one, customers always first, etc., etc. And then of course then comes the other stuff, which is acquiring customers or everything else. Customer satisfaction for us is extremely, extremely important, and I can't even speak too much about it. So I think that's something that's something that a lot of people forget, and I think that's something that people need to keep an eye out for.
Definitely. So, if I have to say, like you mentioned that you have placed a good focus on your SEO strategies, means in terms of whether it might be acquiring your competitors or in terms of
Yeah.
even building your website. So, can you just put some light on your SEO strategy, like how it has been? Have the focus been more on the brand words or a kind of generic keywords?
Yeah, most of our stuff comes from generic words. What is the best what strap? How do I fix the XYZ sort of what strap? It comes from a couple of different things, right? You have to think about how these things will work out for you. So for example, for me, what was important was creating support articles for watches, like how what is the best watch for me, like how do I fit into that watch strap. Another thing that I would look into is like what image SEO. So image SEO is quite important, making sure your alt tags for images are correct, making sure that how when you Google like black and gold watches out, that we would be showing on the images in the first 10 results, etc., etc. And of course, having support articles about help me choose my watch. What is your wrist size? Because a lot of people don't know that kind of stuff. So we are all over that. We are all over that. So that's something. And of course, using these support pages, help pages, which of course in the short term did not have much sort of value to us in terms of sales. But in the long run, what it is for is it is there to help people out, right? The reason why it's there is to help people make the right choice. And of course, then they get exposed to the brand, and from the brand, of course, then it's once they're exposed to the brand, then they can move on to make a purchase decision, looking at, okay, this is a site I've seen them before. They're trustable. They have the right reviews, etc., etc. So we're not looking for a short term gain. Most likely, what people are doing is they're putting the money up, and they're like, oh, I expect a sale tomorrow, and I expect XYZ tomorrow, and then why am I not getting sales? You have to think about it from the long run. Your customer is not going to be with you for the short run. You have to think about your customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and when they're your brand ambassadors, right? And especially if they're able to sort of be a mouthpiece for your brand, testimonials and word of mouth, I think it's super important. A lot of people forget that. Some people are just exist. I've seen this in a lot of e-commerce stores, especially competitors, where people just exist to make only a sale one time only, and then they never think about the customer ever again. So if that is your mentality, I would suggest you shut up your e-commerce shop today, and then you look for a different job, because you have to look at a customer value 5 years from now and see what they're worth to your business.
So this we talked about the organic part. Now coming to the paid activities. So have you implemented any paid activities? And according to you, for an e-commerce or let's say for the watch kind of industry, what are the paid activities that have benefited you?
Well, like I said, I mean, if you ever starting any sort of new venture, I think Google Ads is always the lowest hanging fruit, and of course from there we expand to Facebook ads, YouTube, and everything else. I'm extremely, extremely grateful that we got in at the right time, and we got in quite early, and these strategies have worked out. Of course, influencers, setting up an affiliate program, etc., etc., has also worked out for us in the long run. Yeah. So any sort of paid channel, we are there. I mean, we have tried TikTok, we've tried a bunch of different things there, but it's not really worked out for us. But in the long run, it has given our brand a lot more exposure. So you have to look at like what is your brand exposure. Not everything is going to lead to a sale. People have multiple attribution touch points. I mean, 5 years ago, you only needed 6 to 8 touch points before you made a sale. Today, you need about 18 touch points before you make a sale. So that whole gamut and everything else has changed a lot more.
Next question, Ronnie, will be that what are some of the best online campaigns, or you can say the platforms that have delivered amazing sales?
Google Ads is really good for you. Instagram and Facebook, especially with the
Okay.
iOS, might be a bit overpriced. I would say email. Take care of your email list. Grow your email list. I mean, your cost to company and for selling to your current email list is next to nothing. So, growing your email list, keeping customers engaged, and you don't need to always be selling them something. I mean, it could be something that it could be some helpful content that these customers are looking for. So, to keeping that in mind, I think it's just you have to look at the customer from a different lens to say it's not a one-time sale only. You have to look at how you're going to nurture this customer for 5 years from now. So that's something where email actually does a really good job.
Definitely. Playing with the customer for a long term, keeping it, retaining them. I think so. That's the key
Yes.
thing that you all are focusing on. So that's the key point that is taking Branzio to a next level.
Yes.
So I have a doubt, and that is regarding that in India, which I have seen, that do you think giving discount works in long run? As we have seen that in India,
No,
that
it doesn't. Yeah, in India or China, it's a race to the bottom. It's a race to the battle. You're racing the battle to the bottom. And I know Indians love discounts. I'm Indian, so I understand that mentality. But in the long run, if you keep giving discount, if you're not charging a premium for your service, what you're going to see is you're going to end up suffering losses. I mean, when I started, it was quite interesting. Was that okay? I wanted to see what we are looking for. So I said, okay, maybe I want to set my price at say $70 because I want to sell a lot more watches. But then it's a watch. What you see is people might think it's cheap. It's cheap and cheerful, and it's going to break. So then we tried $150. So you have to play around with the price to see what it is. And at the end of the day, discounting is like the worst thing you can do. It's going to dilute your brand. I mean, we in the watch brand business, we want to have sort of a uh, premium market. We want to see how we fit into that whole ball game versus being cheap and cheerful. And a lot of people think that being cheap and cheerful is going to make a lot of sales. It's not. It's going to dilute your brand. You're going to look like going to look like anything else that's coming from Amazon, or you're going to look like anything that's coming from China. So you need to be able to differentiate yourselves from your competitors.
Definitely. So building a brand, that means we should not be giving a kind of going for the offers and these all things. But then if we are looking for a long term, then we should be focusing on the quality or the USPs of our product that we are kind of selling it out.
Yeah.
Since website forms the backbone of any e-commerce business, so what was your strategy around it?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, the lowest thing that we had was of course was Shopify, and you can build a site and deploy a site in Shopify within a few hours. So right now for us, today we are equipped so well that if you want to launch a new website to do with watches or any other niche, I can sit down with the developers and myself, and we can launch a new website within less than 5 hours. So of course we've perfected that over the years, but when we launched, there's always the shipping, the logistics, etc., etc. I highly recommend Shopify. I mean, if you're starting an e-commerce business out, I think Shopify is the way to go.
Perfect. So have you also tried Magento and WooCommerce?
Yes, I've tried both. I have some sites on Magento and WooCommerce as well, but Shopify remains my favorite.
Shopify is the one that you would recommend.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So coming to the e-commerce side, there a kind of importance of analytics part. So is there any tool or how you keep on working on the analytics part to understand the performance, whether it might be on your
Well, I
website
usually
or
use
maybe?
Google Analytics, and it works out for me. I mean, we've only used GA. We haven't used any fancy other fancy software. I mean, people of course use a bunch of different things, but I personally have found GA to be the place, the way to go.
Definitely. The Google Analytics keeps on growing, and every time, like recently, they have updated a new version, so that keeps on helping. So I think so that's the perfect thing that we
Yes.
we can keep stick to the Google Analytics only.
Yes.
Since the products is made for the global market, so what things were taken care of to provide the personalized experience to people from different countries?
Yeah, I mean, look, the personal experiences. I mean, I personally, what I do is before I launch in any country, I actually go and live there. So I've actually had good experience of actually living in these places and actually gone through the whole process of living in these different places. So once I have worked there and once I've been able to do everything, then it's quite interesting that I've been able to look at these countries and see how things operate, networking with the local business association, etc., etc. So what you have to go live there, you have to understand what the small differences they may have. How business is done in India is not necessarily how it's done in Australia or Canada or the US, or how it's done in the UK is different from how it's done in Germany. So you have to go and understand these nuances when you go there in person. So before we launch there, I usually do a test study of the market for a couple of months, and that's where I get to travel there and see what it's like. Yeah.
So you personally go and then experience that thing. So that will definitely helping in terms of to market that product, to understand what the customers generally need for, or what is the communication that will be better to get a better conversions from them.
Yeah, that works.
Customer retention is a big challenge in e-commerce industry. How do you see it, and how do you ensure that customers keep on coming back on your website?
Yeah, I mean that's what I mentioned earlier that I keep harping about is the importance of email to re-engage customers, right? So when you have a new site being launched, etc., etc. I mean, I always say it's important to look at what options you have, right? So helpful content is a good way, staying on top of mind of customers. I mean, it's not always customers are actually going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, I just bought a new watch yesterday, I'm going to buy a new watch today. What is important is that you stay on top of mind, so that when there's a special event or there's something else is happening, then it's always good to say, hey, hey guys, we thought about you, and I need to buy a new watch for my dad. It's Father's Day. How are we going to go about it? So that is where it comes in. So being on top of mind of customer at any point of time, I think is quite important for us.
So, is there any three digital marketing mistakes that you did during the journey, and that I think so that if you can communicate to our audience, so that we can learn from them?
Yeah, sure. I think my first mistake was actually not sourcing my product correctly, because I tried to make something in Vancouver. I tried to get my watch made in Vancouver, which is extremely expensive. But then I found, I found that it was cheaper for me to fly to Hong Kong and actually source the product in person in Hong Kong and actually make a one-on-one connection with people in Hong Kong. And from there on, that's where the business grew. So you have to be able to trust people and to be able to outsource it to have a better discussion as to how you want it to be, right? Number one. Number two, uh, I would say I've made some mistakes in terms of like launching campaigns, for example, launching AdWords and using only broad match modified, broad keywords versus using BMM or phrase or exact, and realizing it, after the budget had run out a few times. Or now Google spends 300% of your budget, so that's pretty important to know as well. And in some cases, not having the tracking and the tagging done properly, which of course has affected us in the long run.
And any last piece of advice that you would be giving to the digital marketers who are working in e-commerce space?
Yeah, I would always say it's important. It's so important to be on the top of things, and what's more important is to stay ahead of the curve. Whatever new is coming out, it's good to look at it. It's good to digest it. But remember the 80-20 principle. So keep 80% of your budget, use it on tried and tested methods, and only keep a 20% budget for test and see what actually works for the people, right? But a lot of people say this is bright shiny object and we're going to use this, etc., etc. It's the best new thing, blah blah blah. But it doesn't necessarily work for your brand. You have to give for a brand, and especially in e-commerce, you have to look at like what works in terms of sales. Not a lot of people realize that you can actually be using your test budget to explore new things. So for influencers, or upgrading your opt-in outlets using quizzes, etc., etc. So I think that's something that people should be able to do, but they're not actually doing today.
So with this, we have now come to the end of today's episode. It was pleasure having you, Ronnie, and learn the best practices to market in e-commerce product. Thank you so much, and looking forward to host you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here, buddy.